of that which was there. Yeah. Not only do I think, I'm pretty sure, but I know it takes time. In my own interactions with businesses in France, which started way earlier than this, I would say it's the same as my interaction with businesses in other countries as well. Yeah. It takes time to build something, but you've got to have patience, confidence, and a willingness to learn and continuously improve and build. Yeah. And that's the same thing that can happen there. But the difference today is this. With the ecosystem that this summit has given us, when my colleagues and I went to France in 2015, we didn't have this ecosystem. We went out there and we followed the book, as you may, and got to somewhere. I'd say 7 years on, we've got to somewhere. But the difference now is this: the young people who went there this time around, they've got the ecosystem of the new Africa France Summit around them. They've got the support structure. They were looked after really well for the entire time they were there, treated as any high-level delegation would have been treated. Beyond that, there's a lot of support from the French ecosystem in each of the countries where they are from, be it through the embassies or through the Alliance Française, but even going a bit further and looking at the new initiatives which have...
It is a creative industry talk. My name is Eddie Okila, and of course, my guest this morning has been around the world. A man who has worked in the investment banking sector. He's an engineer by profession. He is a ballroom dancer, the British 2015 champion of the ballroom dance. And of course, he's a creative thinker. He's a man who is trying to turn life of the farmers in northern Uganda around and trying to give them meaning creatively using energy, electricity created from food waste to useful stuff. Ladies and gentlemen all across the world, the one and only engineer, Peter Odokonyero. In fact, his name is Peter Ben-Hur Odokonyero Nyeko. Peter, welcome to the show. I had to get this right today.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Yes. You're welcome to the program. And of course, I like the new look of you. Today, we're not seeing you on, the suit and Mr. Uganda, the tie. I think some people are going to be heavily confused of how creative you have become to come onto the creative industry talk. How are you today?
Awesome. Bonjour à tous. Sabah al-khair. Buenos dias, bon dia to everyone.
Wow.
That's Shanghai.
All right. So
yes.
Peter has just returned from France and is fresh from Montefila with French President Emmanuel Macron, and of course many people there from Africa, from the new Africa-French relationships and the conference that happened in France just a week ago. And today on the program, we're focusing on that discussion. If you will put the topic up there for everyone to see all across the world. This is House of Talent Television. We're talking about the new Africa France Summit 2021. What does it really mean for Uganda creative industry? And that will be the very first start of this interview, Pete.
Awesome. Thank you very much. It's great to be here again.
Yeah.
Awesome.
You're welcome.
Yes. And we were great and grateful, with my colleagues to have spent a few days in France, in Paris and Montpellier. Montpellier is on the south of France. It's basically on the Mediterranean Sea. Lovely weather. It felt like being in Kampala, actually,
Wow.
with at least 21 others who went with us from Uganda, from different industries, including the creative industry space.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. So we want to just dive into that conversation, Peter,
Yes.
today, just to sort of like understand, I mean, what does this new Africa, France relationship means to the African creative industry? And to start from the Africa perspective, then we'll narrow it down to East Africa and we'll bring it down to Uganda. What does this really mean to us? What is France saying to us?
Ultimately, creativity comes down to the building blocks of life.
Yeah.
Comes down to understanding.
Yeah.
Comes down to communication, to conversation, and to understanding each other. Understanding each other's customs, each other's cultures, each other's best points, each other's needs for encouragement or otherwise, and each other's inspirations. So one way of looking at it is saying, great, I mean, how do we communicate? What language do we use? Do we speak to each other in French, in France? Do we speak to each other in an African language in Africa? Do our French colleagues learn our languages? Do we learn their languages? Do we learn how to eat their food? Do they learn how to eat our food? Do we learn how to make it? Do we find interesting ways to find similarities between us? What do our grandmothers teach us? Could it be the same thing? What do our grandfathers teach us? Could it be the same thing as well? Yeah. And finding within that, within our cultures and traditions, a lot of similarities that we can build on. And that's one way of looking at it, kicking off. But then also, when we think of it from the other side, we also have similar challenges. We're all on Mother Earth. So the environment is important to all of us. Yeah. The future is important to all of us. The climate is important to all of us. And, little children who are being born and growing, we all want to make sure they live in a better world than we're in now. And so these are some of the few similarities we have in common, and I'm sure there's so many more. So what creativity is so important, and the industry of creativity is so important, is because it allows us to explore our similarities in many ways and accentuate them and build our relationships around those.
Wow. This is the Creative Industry Talk. My name is Eddie Okeela. Mr. Peter Nyeko is in the studio. He's fresh from France, and we're talking about the New Africa France Summit 2021 and what it means for the creative industry in Africa. And Peter has just given us a whole different, perspective to this. New Africa, what does this really mean to Ugandan creatives, if you will break it down? We want to just, first before the Ugandan, but today, East Africa.
Indeed.
East Africa has a few spots that has a relationship with France. We are not necessarily a very deep French-speaking countries, but we are part of the African continent, which France is saying we need to have a new African relationship with us. What does this really mean to the Anglo-speaking countries in East Africa when France brings and starts this kind of conversation?
Awesome. What's interesting is, even if you go to England, if you go to the United Kingdom, and you look at the coat of arms of the royal family, there is there written, Dieu est mon droit. It's written in French.
Okay. Dieu est mon droit.
Dieu est mon droit.
Dieu est mon droit.
Yeah. So it's like, God and my right. Yes. And so already, even as we speak English, there is so much of France in the English that we do speak. Okay. We tell each other bon appetit when we're eating. Yes. And many other things. We say au revoir when we want to see each other again. Yes. But it's more than just that. Yeah. In the end, Africa is a wonderful continent which has had interesting histories. Yeah. The histories may have been joyful.
Yeah.
They could be more joyful in other areas.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is whether we look at history from one side of Africa or another side of Africa, there's a lot we can learn from history.
Yeah.
And there's a lot we can work with what we know from history to make the future even brighter.
Yeah.
And that's what I see from this. There is so much that we here in Uganda, for example, have learned from our brothers and sisters in the more French-speaking parts of Africa, especially when it comes down to culture, fashion, music, and so on. I mean, over the years, as Uganda's own music industry was being built, I'm pretty sure there was a lot of music coming in from the Congo and other places, Pepe Kale, all these guys, before we had our own people on this side coming up with the music. So with music already, we've seen that conversation. With fashion, we still see that conversation all across. My shirt's made in Kampala, but the tailor was born in Congo. So, I mean, that conversation is already happening as we speak. We just want to take that conversation deeper and let it flow both ways. There's also a lot from the East African way of doing things that can be shared on the other side as well. The entrepreneurial way of life and a few other things as well. So that conversation is something which, you know, starts off in Africa, hence, you know, new in Africa, but it also flows in to France and other places because France has a lot of Africa in it as well. You know, not just in the last 100 years, but if you go historically way back, think of the Africans, you know, who were part of the Roman ecosystem as France became part of the Roman Empire. Think about the relationship going back, way back to those days, thousands of years ago. So it's not just 100 years.
This relationship has been there before.
It has been there. It's been there before, yes.
Now, Peter, we just want to encourage everyone to, you know, go onto our YouTube, subscribe, like, share FanWide. We're live on Facebook. We're live on Twitter for those who are on the move. Twitter is live for you right there, and of course on our website. So any of those platforms that you're watching the program from, please go and share it far and wide. We're going to have a great conversation with Peter, and we're just trying to sort of like lay a ground to, you know, what does this, you know, New Africa, you know, France 2021 summit means to us going forward. Peter, you've broken this from the Africa perspective. We want you to just, and you've talked about it from the East African perspective. Let's bring it home. All right. Home is Uganda. And Uganda has been the home and the host to Alliance Francaise and the French embassy for many years. And the relationship has been working on. Back in the days, we used to have a lot of the French, you know, Alliance Francaise and UGCS, which is the Gautier Foundation. And all of this about promoting creativity, culture, and beginning to foster relationship for, you know, cross-cultural learning, for peace building. What does this mean when the French people and the president begin to say New Africa? What does it mean for Uganda and the creative industry?
Awesome. So new is an interesting word, you know. New is rebirth. You could think about it that way. Rejuvenation, you know. And new could be starting with where you are and discovering more within that and expanding upon it. And so we're saying it's amazing, you know. Many of us who are above a certain age will remember a day when there were lots of cars on Uganda's roads that were made in France. Do you remember what those cars were called?
Yes, Renault.
And?
Renault and the Peugeot.
And that one in French, what do they call it?
Peugeot.
Yes.
The 504, the 2, the 204.
Indeed. So there's enough of that in there already. But when we come to today, go to all the restaurants around Kampala, coffee shops, you'll find croissants all around Kampala. So I mean, it's already changing as we see. And we love that. But we're saying, what more is there? If we think about it from a different angle, we talked about creative industry. And creative industry, creativity and industry goes beyond fashion, goes beyond music, goes beyond dance, goes to the building blocks of industry itself. Because industry itself is creativity made real. And if we think about the creative industries
Yeah.
of France, or the industries which are of a French origin,
Yeah.
that have brought their creativity to Uganda. I mean, we know very well that very many Ugandan young people went to study about, engineering of a certain type, and there's a huge investment from a number of large French companies in Uganda,
Yeah.
linked a lot
Yeah.
to, other industries,
Yes.
whether you're thinking it from the point of view of energy,
Yeah.
or you're thinking it from the point of view of water,
Yeah.
or from the point of view of logistics,
Yes.
or from the point of view of infrastructure and
Yes.
roads.
Yes.
When you think about it from that angle as well now,
Yeah.
you go, how big is France's investment
In
conversation with Uganda?
Okay, that's a very interesting conversation to have.
And when we think about it from that point of view,
Yeah.
is it a fleeting investment, or is it an investment for the ages? If it is an investment for the ages, if that investment will be there for generations,
Yeah.
our conversations should also be built on building blocks that can go on for generations.
Yeah.
Therefore, the communication has to be renewed
Yes.
in many ways.
Yes.
We have to find new and more interesting ways
Yeah.
to understand each other even more.
Yeah.
Who knows, maybe I speak to someone in French, in France, in French,
Yeah.
and they speak back to me in Luo.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll try something like that.
Yes.
Who knows? Maybe I'll go to France
Yeah,
and
yeah.
have Luombo
Yeah.
in Paris, and
Yeah.
they'll come to Kampala and have croissants in Kampala.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, we already have, Ugandan fashion designers based in
Yes,
France,
yes,
don't,
yes.
don't we? There's a
Yes,
lovely
we do.
lady
We
there.
have Stella Tal based in France. We have another lady based in France, and
Yes.
Stella actually has been teaching in a French school
Awesome,
Yeah.
awesome, indeed.
for these years, and she's been teaching people our culture in a low, in a preschool.
Yes.
and of course teaching also people in community.
Indeed, indeed.
Yes, and we've hosted our own creative industry quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And then down the road here,
Yeah.
we've got the Alliance Française,
Yes.
around the corner, we've
Yes.
got the École Française, but
Yes.
many Ugandan schools are teaching French,
Yes.
Yes. And Ugandan universities as well are teaching French.
Yes.
And a lot of our professional public sector servants
Yeah.
in different sectors
Yeah.
of government
Yeah.
are quite fluent in French. I've had conversations with people in agriculture who speak
Yes.
French as well as you could possibly imagine,
Yeah.
and so on and so forth. So the building blocks are there.
Yeah.
But now we need to say, great, Uganda is a very young country.
Yeah.
We've got great building blocks.
Yeah.
How can we build on from these building blocks and involve these young people who are the future of this country in this conversation?
Wow.
And that's where it becomes really interesting.
Wow.
And that's what takes us to the speech which was made by His Excellency the President of France in Ouagadougou in 2017,
Yeah.
which went on to what happened a couple of weeks ago in France, with people coming together, conversations being frank, honest, respectful, hopeful, and positive. And that's really exciting from that angle.
Yeah.
If you go and follow on Twitter or on the internet, and just Google, in English, because all those websites now are in English as well, even though they're obviously in French as well. But you Google New Africa France Summit, okay? When you Google that, you'll find so many interesting websites linked to that. And it takes you to a lot of the interesting initiatives that were birthed out of the redefining of the conversation that started in Ouagadougou a few years ago, and that have been augmented by the deeper conversations had the other week, where we had a number of Ugandans actually on stage, both ladies and gentlemen, but others from across the continent. And now, for those in the traditional creative industries, as well as any other industries which are creative, because they all are, there are so many things that you can find there which can help you be part of improving this conversation while moving forward with your hopes and dreams as colleagues building the hopeful future for this continent.
Wow. Wow. Peter, I want you to hold it right there. We're going to take a break. And when we come back, Peter and I will dive deeper and dig deeper into what this necessarily means. And furthermore, we want to understand this new, Africa-France summit and the relationship that is being built. Where does it lead us? How do we benefit from there? Peter scratched the surface, but we're coming back after this break and, digging deep into what does it mean for a traditional creative person here, from agricultural point of view as a creative, to, textile point of view as a creative, to a policy point of view as a person who makes policy for creative thinking or for creative spaces, as well as, from the political angle, what does it really mean if we're thinking creatively? Stay right there. We'll be right back after this break. This is the Creative Industry Talk. Can we hear some more from Jaja? Of course, Jaja is going to play for us that song, Kitenge. You've heard it, the sound, beautiful, and we're going to dive into how Kitenge is going to make it to the world stage as planned by Latif Shah.
Abamina bakyala mwena naddala bali erudde eri munoosirandani kyembakutira kiri kimu butekubagiza wadde embeera za korona bangi zatutagula kakati tuve mu mayumba kitengi pateyi n'ensonze bumale ate nga tetusaanidde ddala kugisuwa mwani yabagamba okwambala engoye z'emivumba tujja kwambala bitengi byokka Designer Latifu Uganda omurasita owakabye yatunga mu nnyonyi Maliki Jeni ne Hawa abo basibi banviri alo tujja kuba nabo Anifa wa makeup Mariamu yedikoleta konne popini ebyokulya bingi nnyo ebyekifirika Madamu Sara Shoshi ebitaddemu umukono Olivia Katharini Nalima Maka manyinga ulira Kolono twambala ebitengi byokka Kolono twambala bitengi byokka
Welcome back. This is the Creative Industry Talk. My name is Eddie Okila, and in the studio is engineer Peter Ben-Hur Odokonyero Nyeko. He is also the proprietor of, the CEO of Mandulis Energy, and of course Ripal and Chakula. These are all brands under him, and the creative space is what Peter does. Peter is a dancer and is an Arabic teacher. He speaks French, and he speaks Luo, he speaks English fluently, and he speaks Spanish. Now, these are all facets of creativity in one man. Who is better fit to be on this show? And he was one of the people who were in France speaking in French with the French president representing Uganda. And of course, on that summit that we had in France a few days back or weeks back. Peter, welcome back to the program. We want to go back from the point where we're discussing the new Africa-France Summit 2021.
Yes.
Now, the opening of the conference, let's start from there. What does it really mean for creativity in Uganda? we saw the French president and the French people open that summit with a dance from the African lady, and one seemingly looking like Italian, and then the African dance was on stage, and everything was about that. And in that moment, what was it trying to communicate to Africa and to, you know, the creative industry?
Thank you so much. I mean, being African and being in that room, you know, you could say it was interesting, you know. It was vibrant, and it was welcoming. And anyone who had come in and may have felt a bit cold warmed up. The ice was broken. It was possible to now be open, fully open, and feel when you open an event with the kind of music that makes you move, get off your feet, and sweat a little bit. The conversation thereafter is fully open.
Yeah.
Nothing's held back. So that was very interesting from that point of view. But also the fact that those who may have been in France for the first time suddenly thought, wait, I'm from Chad, I'm in France, there's a Chadian musician on stage. Or I'm from Bujumbura, I'm in France, there's a Bujumburan dancer on stage. And thinking, wow, I feel seen, I feel heard, I feel welcomed, I feel at home.
Yeah.
That's the message which everyone could basically feel. But at the same time, the fact that you had people from France who are not from an African origin joining in and having even more fun than we're used to having to that same music meant we're all one family. And that was wonderful. And it made a difference because it was a very young audience, an audience where I may have been one of the few people who were not as young. That made a difference there as well. But when we got to the point where the head of state welcomed everyone and had a stage with very young people on it and very open conversations in French and in English on that stage, which you can all see online. You can go to the website, you know, of New Africa France Summit. You can go to the website of the Élysée Palace. Or, I mean, the entire 3.5 hour, big event at the end of the summit is all there online. But you can see everything else as well as the other conversations. But early in the morning, because this happened in the evening to close it, but in the morning and in the early afternoon, you had different sections of the summit where you had the business people having their mini summits, and a Ugandan spoke there. You had the creative industries having their conversations, and a Ugandan spoke there as well. You had the environmental side of things, and you had the sports side of things. So now you see business, environment, sports, creativity. That's what makes it so interesting. Everything that we are really vibrant with as a continent and as a world going forward.
Wow.
Yes.
Peter, so that moment communicated connectivity according
Yes.
to you. That moment communicated that we are welcome. That moment communicated that the things are starting from a new, perspective. I mean, it was a moment for reflection for very many people, including myself, when I was looking into that. Earlier on, we had had a series of events all across, I think, Uganda, when they were preparing toward this day. And one of the things that struck me most was a film that was screened, in preparation leading to the conference. It was about Don't Film. The film was titled Don't Film Me. And when we watched this film, there was this scene in the film where, the director and the producer comes and he pulls out the sweets and the chocolate and give it to the children, and the children speak. And then somebody comes and says, why do you give them the chocolate? Did you ask them if they want the chocolate? What if they want cassava? What if they want this? What if they want this? And that moment simply just came out alive. And we were having a conversation in that moment and saying, look, when we hear now the New Africa-France relationship and looking at the past where the Western world would always just come and give. They assume that this is what you need and then just give you. From the creative point of view, they would come here to come and write the story and tell the story of an African man or woman without talking and getting their perspective. The French president and the French people seems to be saying, no, we now want this story to be told by you. And that's what I saw on the stage. And that's what I saw, the choreography and, the dance, the culture that was being fused on there was telling a lot of things in the background. Where does this leave us with our, the previous mindsets of this is how it is to the new mindset that is trying to be shaped at the moment by the French people?
What's most interesting is on that journey that we went to and in the conversations that we had,
Yeah.
the first thing is New Africa.
Yeah.
We felt the New Africa so much because we got to meet other Africans who we may have not met otherwise.
Yeah.
Africa is not as connected and interconnected as it could be.
Yeah.
So to have an opportunity to meet other entrepreneurs, other creatives, other young people from other African countries, where you spend a week together and interact and share and learn and build on for a better future was even bigger than any conversations that were had with France.
Yeah.
What was great there was you'll find a difference, you'll find a change from the relationships that were built amongst the Africans who had actually gone.
Yeah.
That's kind of one way of looking at it. Secondly, obviously, as you did say, at the event, it was no holds barred. There was every bit of honesty. There was a lot of truth. There was a lot of understanding and coming to terms with the more difficult parts of the history of this relationship.
Yeah.
And it was crucial in that it is now called the New Africa-France Summit. And it follows the alphabetical order. Though previously, many years ago,
Yeah.
it was the other way around.
It was France-Africa relationship.
Indeed.
Yes.
So you could say the focus is more on following the alphabetical order now.
Yes. I see where you're coming. I see the point.
Yes.
Peter, that said, does that now mean that from a creative point of view, down here in Uganda,
Yes.
we can now begin to think about what are our creative, works here, businesses that we also start here? Can it begin to go and open up stalls in France? Can Ugandan, creative people also, Africa creative people also go and invest in France? Because there's been the trade balance between, France and Africa, to be specific, and in Uganda, is more of the France investing in Uganda and less of Uganda investing in France. Now, I want to look at from that point of view. If we're thinking now creatively, and there are products, of course, we now have people like Stella Artois in France. Does that mean Artois can come up with a factory or, set up a factory in France? Does that mean that Pfizer Chiwewa, that was part of, the delegation, can set up, a festival of a Baimba festival in France and run it in France without any limitation? Does that mean like Dawoodi, Karunji and the many likes, and yourself, can you go and start a farm in France and also, build your product there and run your product? Did you see that sense and that kind of sense in the conversation? I know some conversation on stage was quite tensed.
Yes.
I saw some people from the Western part who were quite very tough at the moment and the French president remained calm and everything was like, okay, we take this from you and we continue to, build this relationship. So that moment that was very tense of some great exchange of ideas on stage were quite very telling, and it came out as a way of some people feeling still hungry about some of the things that happened in the past. Others are saying, no, 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 this is it. This is the moment. This is the new Africa France. We're moving forward. What did you feel while sitting there? As an investor, that's number one. As a creative mind in France, as a man who actually acts in the theater, what opportunities did you see that the creative art can actually, present itself and do in France?
Interesting. The conversation is getting quite wide now.
Yes.
But I'll go back to what you started with.
Yes.
One thing we all know about France is, France is happy, joyful, and proud to be France. That's the first thing we can learn from France.
Yeah.
France knows all about France. France celebrates France. France celebrates its history, its cuisine, its language, its music, its culture. Mm-hmm. So when we want to have a conversation with France, it helps if we also come from a point of celebrating our history, our culture, our heritage, our food. Then we can have because the conversation involves exchange.
Yes.
So we have to have something to bring forward. And if we don't yet understand ourselves fully, if we don't yet celebrate ourselves fully, it's difficult to begin to share what we ourselves don't yet understand. It takes us back to earlier conversations we had about what is Uganda, what is being Ugandan.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to, first of all. France is very sure what France is. I can be comfortable about that.
Yeah.
You will never find anywhere in the world a Bordeaux wine done the way it's done in Bordeaux.
Yeah.
You know that.
Yes, that's true.
You will never find Camembert cheese done the way they do Camembert in France. Have we got to a point where we can say, do we have a Bukoto pie, which is the only way to cook that pie in the whole world?
Yeah.
So when we go to Montpellier, we can get something from there and share with them that. So that's one way of looking at it. We've got to focus a bit more and really learn to celebrate ourselves. Can we have our equivalent of what is celebrated at the Louvre in Paris? Can really celebrate that heritage to that much? That's important from that traditional creative side of things. But when we go to the other side as well, I mean, of course, I am very confident that Ugandan businesses in any sector who are able to dream, plan, and realize can fly to France and invest in any part of France as well. I mean, of course, you've already mentioned a few businesses in the creative industry already who already invested in France.
Yeah.
But in other industries as well, that can happen. In the knowledge industry, in many others.
Yeah.
What makes it even more interesting now is investment is not only physical. It's not only in hardware.
Yeah.
Now you've got the internet. You've got developers in Uganda, developers elsewhere who can develop Ugandan apps that could be used in France. But now it shouldn't be only about we create something, we put it on a ship, and we ship it out, and we get paid for it. Yeah. That's when we go new. We've got to think beyond that now and go, okay, let's not say, all right, great, let's have something for them to buy.
Yeah.
No, let it be a conversation as well from that point of view.
Yeah. And
let's say, is there something we can take from our learnings of how we have overcome some of our challenges in Uganda? Is there something we can take from that to invest in a part of France that may be facing similar challenges that could learn from how we solve these challenges? Yeah. I'm sure with a bit of research we can find a few areas where we can share. Yeah. The same way France has been able to share with us so much on the technological side, in oil and gas, in infrastructure, in water services, and so much more.
And that said, Peter, I just want to take you deeply on that part of the conversation. So, was that the sense that you picked from there while you attended the New Africa-France Summit 2021, when the French president was talking, when all the presenters were on stage and talking? Did you see that as a person from Uganda, from the creative, that you think this is the creative side that we need? Did you see the sense of what you're talking about?
What's exciting is
Yeah.
I saw it, I felt it, and I could see others also acting on it.
Yeah.
What's interesting from that point of view was those of us involved in business went a few days earlier. We were there on Monday. We had events on Monday and Tuesday within the premises of the French government. We had another summit on the Wednesday and the Thursday. So we had a lot of time to interact with business people from France. We had the opportunity to book meetings with them in advance.
Yeah.
We had opportunities to share our profiles
Yeah.
and learn more about how they do things, but also go towards a point where we can actually do business together with them.
Yeah.
Not just in France, but also in other parts of Africa
Yeah.
where doing business with French colleagues would make a massive difference. So all our opportunity was there on the table. It just came down to saying, great, are we able to prepare in advance, go there, learn how to communicate emotionally, through word, through exchange of culture, but build from that, our needs to make a difference through business and otherwise. And I think there's so much of that which was there.
Yeah.
Not only do I think, I'm pretty sure, but I know it takes time. In my own interactions with businesses in France, which started way earlier than this, I would say it's the same as my interaction with businesses in other countries as well.
Yeah.
It takes time to build something, but you've got to have patience, confidence, and a willingness to learn and continuously improve and build.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing that can happen there. But the difference today is this. With the ecosystem that this summit has given us, when my colleagues and I went to France in 2015, we didn't have this ecosystem. We went out there and we followed the book, as you may, and got to somewhere. I'd say 7 years on, we've got to somewhere. But the difference now is this: the young people who went there this time around, they've got the ecosystem of the New Africa-France Summit around them. They've got the support structure. They were looked after really well for the entire time they were there, treated as any high-level delegation would have been treated. Beyond that, there's a lot of support from the French ecosystem in each of the countries where they are from, be it through the embassies or through the Alliance Française, but even going a bit further and looking at the new initiatives which have been deployed alongside this summit. If you go to the New Africa-France Summit web pages online, you'll find initiatives that have been set up specifically for different industries. I know of 2 in particular for the creative industry, and you can go online and check those out. And there are incubators where you can go with your idea, build it up, and get it to a point where it's robust and can last a distance. So if we all know Yves Saint Laurent, French brand, could we get a Ugandan brand in fashion going on to one of these incubators and accelerators, and building up, getting to a point where they have strengthened themselves as a brand and as a business, and they're able to access funding as part of that as well. So there are 2 different things you'll find on the website, which includes support, incubation, funding, and further investment. And it's being led by none other than the French Development Agency, Agence Française de Développement, which is, wow, it's the same entity that's supporting infrastructure, roads, and so on. That same entity is now supporting the creative industry. That means so much.
Okay. I want to just ask you one more question, Pete,
Yeah.
before we go for a break. I mean, you're obviously breaking this down, and to everyone out there, we're talking to Engineer Peter Nyeko, who was at the New Africa French Summit 2021 on the invitation of the French embassy in Uganda and the French government. And of course, they came back with a different perspective, which we need to dive into to understand the different perspective that will allow us to shape the attitude and perception of the local people going forward. Relationships mean two. Must be in communication. They must be talking. What is your say? What is your comment about the New Africa France relationships? Have a say, send us a comment or kisses or disses and let us know what your thoughts are. Peter is breaking down what he has seen at the conference, and for the next couple of days we're definitely going to be discussing the New Africa France relationship. What does it mean for us in the creative industry? I mean, every sector in Uganda or anywhere in the world needs a creative mind. A creative mind is a person who think about something, think about the solution to the problem, creates the product that is needed in the market for us to be able to move forward. It is a solution based. So if we're talking about the New Africa, then we've got to be able to make sure that this is actually something that we're all working together to make sure it works. Peter, coming back to you. The attitude in Africa is different. I mean, if you have been in a relationship where you felt like the relationship in the past wasn't okay, some would say, take for example, if you felt like the relationship in the past was very aggressive or was quite abusive to you and or quite demeaning to you, and now the relationship is changing and it's beginning to look like no, we're starting from a new fresh page, forget about that. We saw that on the stage when the French president actually apologized. He started this in Ouagadougou sometime, and then again this time around he apologized. And some of the young people took it upon themselves to say, this is the only chance we have to talk to the president of a different country like France. You don't quite get that in the US, in the UK or any other countries that are quite very eminently placed in Africa. It was something different. But then again, there's an argument that maybe because he's young, maybe because the other one don't understand as the young, maybe because the older generation don't understand the younger generation. What does that communicate to us? What was the feeling like in the room when it says, we are sorry for whatever has happened in the past, for whatever our ancestors have done, for whatever our background has done, for whatever our relationship has been, we are sorry. How did the people who are seated in that place, the young black Africans, look at it, particularly from the point of witness as Peter?
Awesome. So what's interesting is we shouldn't think of history as 50 years or as 500 years.
Yeah.
Let's think of history as history. And if we look back only 50 years, we can see it from only one angle. If we look back 500 years, we can see it from a different angle.
Yeah.
If we look back 5,000 years, it's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah.
Remember the time when you may have been a pharaoh?
Yeah.
Right here where we're sitting right now.
Yeah.
When the superpower
Yeah.
was the country,
Yes.
the civilization around these waters called the Nile.
Yeah.
Imagine if there was a new France Africa summit then,
yes.
hosted by the Pharaoh.
Yes.
What was the relationship then?
Yeah.
There are cycles in history.
Of course.
And we can't, I mean, this is my opinion, but I believe we can't focus only on one part of history and forget that there has been cycles for quite a while.
Yeah.
I went all the way back to ancient Egypt, but we can go even closer to the Roman Empire, and we can think of the Africans within the Roman legion
Yes.
who were part of the conquest of France and other places. We could think of the Africans who were part of the conquest of most of Europe during the time when we had the Moors,
Yeah.
and the Saracens, in Spain and in Italy, which is kind of near France as well.
Yeah.
History is really interesting. And we've got to think of it and say, great, ultimately, whatever happened 50, 500 or 5,000 years ago, let's look at it holistically, and let's look at it with hope. Let's look at it with honesty. And let's look at it with the point of view of building a brighter future where the kids who are yet to be born are able to interact and communicate in a beautiful way. And that's what can build the kind of world we all want to see. And that's what I feel we may have had a bit of a building block of during those days. And it may have been a breath of fresh air for that first step. It is always a first step.
Yeah.
There's a lot of work to be done beyond this. People who went have to communicate with each other. People who hosted have to communicate with those who went. People who went have to, people have to figure out, how can we take this spark and turn it into a flame and sustain it and build it even bigger and better going forward.
Yeah.
So a seed has been sown. It has been planted. And, the doors have been opened. Now it's important for all of us to make the most of it moving forward.
Yeah.
There are still opportunities to make mistakes. Mistakes are still being made as we speak. But this honesty allows us to now look at things from a different point of view and go, can we learn from mistakes done before? Can we learn from mistakes being done right now? Can we tweak what can still be tweaked?
Yeah.
Can we make a difference going forward?
Yeah.
And it all comes down to communication as a first building block. Because if I'm working with you and you're from France, let's say, or you're from a part of West Africa that only speaks French, I could start by learning some French. And then as we work together, I'll share some jokes with you, you'll share some jokes with me, then you'll teach me some Luganda. And as I learn it, we will be more than just two people who have different cultures.
Yeah.
We'll be two people who appreciate each other's cultures and look for the similarities between our cultures and encourage each other to be proud of our heritage and move hand in hand that way. So that's part of what we can really take a look at, especially as we move forward. And there is so much more that will come of it as a result. But if we look at it only as a fantastic event, fun was had, good food was eaten, maybe some funding is got here and there, that's not the solid rock upon which we can build a sustainable future of hope.
Wow.
We've got to go beyond that. We've got to look inwards and say, great, when I saw the Louvre, what will I do with my museum? And say, when I learned about this institute that protects the French language and makes sure it's, understood and appreciated, what will I do with my own languages on this side? When I look at little things like that, when I now say, great, beyond that, what have I seen in Côte d'Ivoire that could benefit from the way I farm in Kirandongo? What have I seen in Mali that can benefit from the way I drill water in Karamoja? Can I share some of those things on that side as well? So we've got to look beyond just France and Uganda, or Uganda and Côte d'Ivoire, but look at ourselves as human beings, and look at ourselves as people who are all little newborn babies at some point, identical in every way, with the same needs, same hopes, same dreams, and same fears, to simply stay alive and be happy. When we build from that newborn within each of us, we're able to build that new Africa, Africa France
Yes.
and Africa world relationship.
Wow. The creative industry is going to take a break, and when we come back, Peter and I will continue this conversation in the last part. We're talking about the new Africa France Summit 2021, those who attended it, those who represented us in France, those who represented us in Montefiore, and they are now back in Uganda. What was the learning, from that event? What happened there? What's the interpretation of that? Does it communicate what France is saying, that we need a new relationship with Africa? Does it communicate the reality of what we're actually talking about, the new Africa-France relationship? We're going to take a break, and when we come back, Peter and I will dig deep into that spot. And of course, we want to find out from you, what are your says, what are you saying, what are your comments, are you understanding? If you're not understanding, are you listening to some of the things Peter is talking about? For the next couple of weeks, we're going to have Peter come back here and interview one of those people one by one, just to know from them, what did they learn from there. And stay right there, we'll be right back after this. This is Creative Industry Talk on House of Talent Television. What happens typically if a business person comes to you and they don't have a story completely? Do you have to go and start creating this story with them? Do you guide them as a creative consultant? What do you do in that process when the customer is absolutely green about what they are talking about, but you need to create a product for them? What do you do always?
In my approach,
Yeah.
I usually have standard questions.
Yeah.
More like my frequently asked questions around
Yeah.
product development. That includes even from brand development when creating logos. So I have, if they don't have, everybody has a story.
Yeah.
It's just that some people don't know how to capture their story.
Yeah.
So at that moment, I'm like a brand journalist trying to dig and harvest that story out of that person if they don't know they have it. So I will ask them this set of questions. By the time we are done, they will realize, oh, I actually have a story. I just didn't think of it from that perspective. Just like now, I asked you, where do you come from? And if I dig into your Lyra origins,
before you know
YAM, before you know it, which school did you go to? I mean, how did you grow up? Before you know it, then we will end up to your idea, how you got the idea. There's a whole bunch of questions that can dig us close to creating the story. So it's not very hard. It's not as hard. For me, I usually have a default set of questions ready, and every person answers these questions differently, and that gives them their story.
Welcome back from that break. This is the Creative Industry Talk. My name is Eddie Okila, and this is House of Talent Television. In the studio is Engineer Peter Nyeko, who is the CEO of Mandulis Energy, and of course REPAL, which is renewable energy powering livelihood, agricultural renewable energy powering agriculture in agricultural livelihood. Peter will come and tell us about that. But I just wanted to know, he's also Ripal and he's also Chakula, and I just wanted to break that ice for you so you can know that from a creative point of view, Peter is actually a very serious person. Peter, welcome back to the program.
Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
How do I respond in France? When you say Mexico, what do I say next?
Merci beaucoup is basically thank you very much.
Yes. So how do I respond?
De rien.
De rien.
Yeah.
Okay. De rien, Peter.
Okay.
So a quick one. Just let's talk about Ripal. Can
Yes.
Ripal go to France? And what is Ripal for everyone? Can Ripal set up in France with this new new Africa-France relationship? Can Ripal also move to France and invest in France?
Thank you very much. Ripal is a company I work at, and I was blessed to be part of the team that set it up. We already have quite strong partners from France. We work very closely with a French NGO. We work very closely with a French new energy company. And we are doing a lot of work right now in Uganda, and we are looking to do more work in other parts of Africa. But beyond that, what is birthed out of our work focusing on renewable energy, powering agriculture and rural livelihoods, has been discovering a way to innovate the possibility for electricity in a village to be cheaper than electricity in the city for industrial productive use.
Yeah.
That's an innovation that came out of an Africa-France synergy, incubated in Uganda, and now able to be shared with the world, enabling us to figure out that huge issue. Uganda's president talks a lot about the importance of low cost of electricity for industry.
Yeah.
He talks a lot about the importance of value addition.
Yeah.
This innovation that's been birthed from a France-Uganda ecosystem, from a France-Africa system, has helped realize that already. Yeah. And we'll be sharing that with other parts of the world. Yeah. But the digital parts of that, and part of our digital ecosystem, actually involves another startup, which is Ugandan birthed, which is actually incubated in Toulouse, in France, and is already sharing a lot of knowledge at the forefront of the aerospace industry in Europe, including France. So there are no limits to that conversation.
Yes.
And whatever you're doing, just make sure you do it to the very best of your ability. Make sure you do it so that it not only makes Uganda proud, it not only makes France happy, but it makes the whole world glad and grateful. Yeah. And that's the angle that we're basically pushing. Every one of us has one idea that we may not think much of, but with the right ecosystem, with the right nurturing and the right building, can become something. So if our dear friend, our dear sister in France, in fashion, if she was going to set up a factory, she could even get the investment in Uganda to set up a factory in France. Who knows? What if she finds a way to interact with some of the big French brands out there? Some of the biggest French brands in fashion, in lifestyles, are already working with deep tech and engineering to engineer some of the stuff that they are doing. But who knows? Maybe she's got ways to even interact with some of the stuff they're doing. Maybe they can set up joint ventures together. Who knows? Maybe she can come to one of her friends in Uganda who's built an arcade and invested 10 million euros already in Uganda from their own pocket. Maybe someone like that could even invest in such a Ugandan, enterprise based out of France to then go from France to other parts of Africa. France is actually a very good base to be if you're going to now go and take a Ugandan innovation to West Africa.
Yeah.
From a base in France, you can do that. If you're going to go to other parts of Africa, which may not speak French, because we found people there who speak Arabic, who speak Portuguese, who speak Afrikaans, You know, Africa is more than just French and English. It's just got so many good things there, including Kiswahili. So, I mean, of course, I speaking more from my hat as, you know, a board member at l'École diplomatique de Kampala, Kampala International School, I very much encourage young Ugandans, Ugandan parents, to encourage little kids growing up to just go online and figure out what are the official languages of the African Union. My prayer is learn all of them. Learn all of them, be fluent in all of them, so that you can be fully African. I want to go to Bloemfontein and speak in Afrikaans. I don't yet speak in Afrikaans, so I've got a job to do. I've got to learn Afrikaans so I can go to SA and be relaxed. I've got to improve my Portuguese so I can go to Playa in Cabo Verde. You know, there's a great man from Cabo Verde in Uganda who's the head of FAO here. I want to go visit Antonio in his home and speak to his people in his language. You know, I want to go, you know, to Morocco and speak to them in, you know, in Maghrebi. You know, it would be great to be in an Africa where we don't need translators.
Wow.
Where, if you're in my village, we will shortwave. If I'm in your village, we'll medium wave. If we're in his village, we'll long wave. Either way, we'll communicate.
Yes.
And that would be so exciting. And that's the biggest thing I got out of these last 2 weeks. The fact that you can bring people together, they'll have one thing in common. Every one of us had a penchant for croissant. Penchant is another word in English that was taken from French, and we now own it in English, right? I like croissant. But everyone in there definitely had croissant for breakfast. I met some people, you know, from Arabic-speaking Africa. I didn't speak to them in French. I just spoke Arabic only.
Wow.
I met those who speak Portuguese. I don't speak Portuguese, but I tried to meet them halfway and speak to them in Spanish, and they answered back in Portuguese. We made our way somehow, you know. But
you were able to communicate.
Yes, but there's more we can do.
Wow.
Let's sort out that Kiswahili.
Wow.
Let's sort out that Arabic. Let's sort out that Portuguese. Let's sort out that Afrikaans. Let's be able to go and at least have the lingua franca, another French term that we now use in English, lingua franca, and communicate with each other in a way that allows us to share what is deepest. And one thing that made this possible is the fact that His Excellency, you know, the President of France, spoke to everyone in the room in English as well as he was speaking in French to the colleagues who were on stage, the young people. There were translators in the room who were able to translate different languages to those who had the headphones and so on. But I'll be honest, I was most grateful for my French teachers growing up because I didn't need those headphones. And I could get the meaning behind the meaning within the meaning.
That's the reason why we were on the show today, because we wanted to start this conversation from the point of the person who understood, the person who speak French, the person who understood, not the person who was being translated for during New Africa France Summit. And that's the reason why we were thinking that we probably need to have Peter just do a series of interview with these guys. Everyone who has been in France coming back here, we want to hear, did they understand the magnitude of the weight placed upon their shoulder? That this is what we're saying we're going for now. As Africa, this is where we're going. And as France, this is what we want to do with you. What is our understanding of this? How does this begin to shape our perspective and attitude towards moving forward? Sometimes we're stuck. There was a moment, Peter, on that stage when a man, sort of like grabbed a microphone from the president and spoke, and watching the video, and I said, and he felt like he was going native, sort of, and everything remained calm. I mean, you were processing this not from the English translation to France or French translation to English, but directly from there. What was your assessment of that? Of course, we know that he was trying to test the waters to see, am I free or I am not free? But also sometimes, you know, to outgrow the things that we've been through in life, sometimes it's difficult. Sometimes we struggle to be in the future, but while trying to be who we are yesterday, you know, it's very difficult to try to be who you want to be tomorrow, but at the same time in who you were yesterday. It's a very confusing statement right there, but we understood something. There was a calmness of that situation at that moment.
Yes.
What was your assessment, and what did it mean? That assessment really meant to every single black person who was sitting there, including those who are actually the French black people working inside France and their ministers. What signal did it send?
I've got to give a lot of kudos to the French education system, especially in how they train and prepare the diplomats and civil servants for service. I felt so much that everyone in the public sector within France who we interacted with had that decorum, had that calm, had that peace, had that ability. Even those who were in, even those who were officers of the law, making sure His Excellency was safe, even they had a level of diplomacy which was to write to a grandmother about.
There was no spanking off the stage.
No. And that's something that we can all learn. That's what I think we can learn from that.
Yeah.
It's something that we in Africa as young people can learn from.
Yeah.
It's something that we can teach kids as they're growing up and say, should we make sure kids learn more about the importance of diplomacy, decorum, and calmness? While not forgetting the importance of making our point heard.
Yeah.
But also the importance of listening to someone else's point, allowing them to speak, allowing them to let it all out, to be calm, and then share also what we have to share, but let it be an exchange of ideas, an exchange of experiences, and an opportunity to then let bygones be bygones without forgetting them. And that's really interesting from that point of view. But it's something that not only us can learn from, it's something that also the French private sector can learn from. My prayer is that the French private sector also gets to learn that level of diplomacy and understanding and conversation that the French public sector is incredible at. We, the private sector in Africa, can learn from that. The private sector in France, that's French, can learn from that. The French private sector in Africa can definitely learn from that too. That was something else which we all need to go, take some 3 hours, you know, have some croissants, have a glass of Chateauneuf du Pape, have some, you know, raclettes if you're up in the hills and it's cold, and watch the whole 3.5 hours. It's a learning experience for each of us, whichever way we're looking at it, whether we're a young person, a multinational, or a local Ugandan company. Definitely very, very crucial to look at it from all those points of view.
Wow. Peter, we're coming to the evening of our interview today, and I would just want to, first of all, say thank you very much, everybody who has been, you know, watching the program and sharing it far and wide. We also do know that sometimes it's difficult because of the internet in Africa and particularly in Uganda, you know, to the rest of the world, but we will continue to have the broadcast going on, and if you missed a part of it, it will definitely be running over and over for you to be able to catch and not miss any part, or even reconnect with the part that you've missed. And Peter, for me, is having this conversation with you gives a lot more enlightenment to what happened and the insights to what happened on the stage in France, in Montefiore that day, or in those days that you guys were there. And you had a number of people who came with you. Did you have a chance to actually sit down as a, you know, a delegation from Uganda to say, what can we learn from here? What can we do from here? Did you sort of like organize yourself to try and have a Ugandan caucus there to try and engage some of these ministers of businesses to do this from a private sector point of view, as people invite in France, or it was business as usual? We do the conference, we all depart to our rooms, and then see you home.
What was very interesting there was you had groups that came on different days.
Yes.
And within those, you had, a lot of support structures within us. We're really grateful to the Embassy of France in Uganda because they actually made sure we were okay all the way through. Even as we were making, connections to other parts of Africa and to France, I think our connections within Uganda have been strengthened thanks to this. We all came from different parts of Uganda, from different walks of life, from different industries, and different age groups as well.
Yes.
But I felt this interesting gel forming, from when we were trying to find out, where can I find, toothpaste, or where can I find this, the other. But in this journey, our bonds have become even stronger. And there's so much that we've all learned from, what to me and to others, I hope, was the pièce de résistance of His Excellency President Macron's speech. Another French term, which means the main course.
Yes, yes.
And it came down to what he said in French, and I'll try to translate it to English, but what he said
you can say it in French.
I'll say it in English. I'll say it in English. I'll say it in English because they can get it in French on when they get the whole speech. But the challenge is, watch the speech, learn French, so that in 3 years' time you can listen to the whole speech in French. That's my challenge to you all, especially everyone who went on delegation. Anyone who works for a French company, just learn French, please. But the meat of the matter was as follows, or vegan meat if you don't eat meat, was France cannot look at its own future and really make it happen if it doesn't consider the Africa within it as well as the Africa without. That's the kind of message.
Repeat that again, Pete.
For France to really look at its own future,
yes,
it has to consider the Africa within and the Africa without. And it's got to consider the history. Be they joyous histories or be they histories that could have been more joyous. That's my interpretation of what I heard as the meat of the matter, which was, we have all had a past. Let's be honest about that past. Let's each of us admit that past. But let's also acknowledge that and move forward. But remember that within us, there is a part of each other. What was big there to me was there is a part of Africa in France. And I don't mean an African as in terms of someone who looks African, but the Africanity. He used the word Africanity. There is an Africanity in France.
Yes.
And there is an Africanity in Africa. The same way, let's find that common core within all of us and build from there. And that's what I thought was amazing, because we all know that civilization became in Africa, life started from here. So when you talk about the Africanity within, you're talking about the core, the building blocks, the beginning. You're talking about, in my opinion, the baby we are each born as. And when we go back to that core, we will find the similarities within ourselves to build that brighter future and that more glorious tomorrow. And to paraphrase His Excellency's words again, to make the planet better again.
Wow. Well, Peter, thank you very much, first of all, for this wonderful, deliberation and the show this morning. And of course, this afternoon and this evening, depending on which part of the world you're actually watching the program from. I want to just take a few moments to just read before you close the show. Peter, I want to start from a gentleman here all the way in France. Eddie Okila, thank you very much for the show. Merci beaucoup. He's written many other things in France, but he says, I love that gentleman speaking French. It was nice to see some Ugandans actually attend this and pull on that. I've been looking forward, to see how this will come to pass. I live and work in France, and it was a great joy for me to see that the Africans were in France and were beginning to talk about certain things that were never usually talked about. My joy and hope is that the Africans will take this seriously, and it's not just a political speech or a political stage or a platform, but we are actually able to leave this going forward and capitalize on this going forward. I think that it is important that a president of our time begins to lead a way, a new way of the world going forward. Macron, kudos.
Kudos indeed.
Yes. I have another gentleman here. Says, Eddie Okila, thank you very much. I followed the conference from there. I just felt like the delegation from Uganda didn't take much advantage of that. I did not see them engaging business communities there during the conference to actualize that to serious business. So I like the topic you brought. What does it mean for the creative industry? I think it's not just the creative industry. It should be for the production industry and put all of this. We have many companies from France working in Uganda. And can we have also these Ugandans build some multinational companies working in France? That way we'll begin to see the new Africa-France relationship as a reality. Wow, so people are actually taking this very serious.
Yes.
Peter, I want to read one from, a comment here from Kito Diallo says, thanks, Pete, for a great show. I have a question. France is known for exercising assimilation policy of colonialism, which seemingly was the best at benefiting Africans, where it saw many West Africans heading to France. Is this new French-Africa relationship another form of modern-day assimilation policy?
What I'd like to answer to my dear brother and say thank you so much, merci beaucoup, mon frère, is ultimately, when we look at something new, we look at what was old, we learn from it, and we build something better for the planet and for the future. So whatever challenges were there in the way things have been done before, or the way things may still be being done today in other areas, there is what we should learn from that. And he may have highlighted a few things as well, and I believe we shall learn from that. But what's interesting is, it's no longer a one-way street. I think we can all go online and Google and try to figure out how much French investment is there in Uganda. I speak for Uganda because I live here. I believe one will find that it is significant. One might find that it is so significant that it makes a difference. And one might also realize that there are enough Ugandan investments in Uganda that are sizable enough, and we had a few of them on our delegation. Massive entities that would hold their weight in terms of revenues anywhere in the world, be it in France or even in California. The point is, if a company from France can come to Uganda and help us overcome a few hiccups that we have in certain sectors where they have better experience, we also should consider, looking for opportunities to invest in places like France and other areas where we can build on our knowledge on this side to make a difference there. But more than that, take advantage of what he highlighted. Say, look, I'll go biblical maybe and go, out of the lion's carcass, honey was found. So if the history in West Africa could have been better, we can make it better now. We could say, could a Ugandan company work through France to make a difference in West Africa? Could it work the other way around? There are so many possibilities. Could a West African country, companies from West African country, go somewhere else and figure out how to better connect with a place like Uganda or Kenya or Tanzania? There's a lot we can learn from each other. There's a lot we must learn from each other. And there's a lot we need to learn from each other to actually move forward and not just look at the past as sadness, but look at the past not as something to be forgotten, not as something to only apologize for to make people feel better, but as building blocks for the future. And no matter how bad what happened may have been, there is always a way to turn something around to make the most of that. Because if I'm to be very honest, I'll go, well, I talked earlier about going way back beyond 50 years and talking about the Roman Empire and other sort of things and so on. But even I look at just the last 50 to 100 years, I can now go to Côte d'Ivoire and do business because I speak French and because they speak French, right? Someone from Côte d'Ivoire can come to Uganda and do business if they speak English because we speak English. That's something worth thinking about. It's not all bad. Of course, there may be a lot that could be made better, but that's what we have to start from. We say, look, it's not perfect, it's not incredible, but it doesn't mean it can't become incredible. It doesn't mean it can't become better. It doesn't mean we can't turn a new page and build a new future and write a new novel, as the head of state said. Write a new novel and make it even more joyous.
Wow. Thank you very much, Peter. I just want to read one more, comment from here as we close the show. And this is really a very interesting one. It's sort of like a comment. It says, Eddie Okilah, thank you very much. I hope that we can continue with this conversation for the next couple of days. What I'm really very much particularly interested in, I'm in the art industry, and you're talking about what does it mean for the creative industry in Uganda. Creative industry in Uganda already doesn't have very good policies to be able to help it foster to go beyond borders. And that's something that we need to look into. But it doesn't mean that everything is doom and gloom. What we're really interested in mostly is to see that this thing that France is actually talking about is a new reality of how people begin to view Africa going forward. What I'm interested in going forward is to see how this conversation you've started on this platform with these people will end. But more especially, I want to see that this is not lip service, it's a reality that can be lived and can be practiced and can be tried and tested. This is the only time France has got to prove itself right from many other countries that have always talked about their heart being for Africa, but they do something different. We've had China talk about Russia and China saying that trade with Africa, but the trading has not been balanced. The Chinese trading in Africa is almost one-way street, is not a two-way street. Can France live its promise that a new Africa can be born? Great, words from Mr. Peter Nyeko, and a shout out to him. And I have a question to Mr. Peter Nyeko. He speaks French very well, seemingly. Can he tell us whether he was able to get a sense of truth from the French people? Because sometimes they can be deceptive. Peter, I think you are now becoming like the Messiah on the French things. I mean, you've had the question coming from my friend Peter right there. Peter is into creative arts industry, particularly is a painter.
Awesome.
Yes, he's a paint artist, and he said he's sold. I know he has sold many of his, art and craft to the French people. I mean, back in the days when I was still very active, I used to be the best MC for the creative arts in Uganda. At some point, we tried to lead, a campaign to raise money to build the National Museum for the creative industry in Uganda. And then that was led by Roberta from Germany, and of course Carol Bodner from Germany as well. And I think there was another gentleman from France whose name I forgot. But that was the discussion. So this relationship has been going on for some time. So Peter has of course benefited from some of this. But then again, everybody is saying, is this something that is going to be a reality? Perhaps we'll bring, people from the French embassy, the director, and maybe even at some point just, put the a French ambassador onto the bench here to basically have this conversation. Is it true? Is it going to be a reality? I wouldn't mind actually, having a conversation with the president himself to say, this is what we want to understand this from the Ugandan perspective. Does this mean it's going to be a reality? But over to you, Peter, as we wind up. And
Awesome.
then while you give us that, Peter, we also want to give us the last 3 things that summarizes what you have said today, that of what this summit actually really means for the creative industry. Please
Awesome.
dive into it.
So great. I believe it's real. You can always look at something based not only about what it's spoken, but what has been done. We all know it is a fact that France has really supported the Ugandan creative industry, going way, way back.
Yeah.
Sadly for me as a Ugandan, much more than us as Ugandan business people have, even though we have the ability to. We're learning from France how to appreciate our own.
Yeah.
We're learning from France how to appreciate Ugandan art and so that's that. So it's already been happening. The fact that a new page is being turned to make it even more interesting and involve us even more in that conversation allows for reflection and gives a lot of hope. It's, I speak the way I speak for many reasons, probably because I'm thinking in Luo and speaking in English, but at the end of the day, when I translated to France, and what I was hearing, when I was there, it's a fact that there is a way forward. The work really right now, at least coming on from the summit, is for each of us, 300 plus who went from around Africa, strangely enough, a huge percentage of that from Uganda. That's another point to think about. If there are 300 and 22 from Uganda, Uganda must probably have some form of interest.
Significance here.
Yes, and it's and I mean I do understand.
That's a conversation for another
Yes.
show altogether.
And that's why what does that mean? It means, in my opinion, each of those 22 had something to share with France and something to share with the other African delegates there, which is special about them and special about Uganda that the world needs.
Yeah.
Each of those 22 who went needs to ask themselves, why me? Why Uganda? What is it that I had to share out there? And what is it that I can still share to make the world a better place and give honor to Uganda? We shouldn't think about it in terms of saying, what do we get from France or what will France give us? No, I believe it's the other way around. I believe it was what France could give us.
Yeah.
France would just fly in, right? But if you go there and have that conversation, there is something you have to say. There's something which you have to share. There's something which you can do. In some industries, more than one person was on the delegation. And I'd say reflect upon that. What does that mean for the opportunities for your businesses in France, in French-speaking West Africa? There is so much to build on from this. And we, from the business sector, have so much to learn from our colleagues in the arts because they've gone far, right? They've been able to take African art and make it global. Now, can we take African business and make it global? The way African art has gone global? Can we take African education global the way they have taken African music global? Can we take African innovation global the way they have taken African sport global? You see what I mean right there?
Yeah.
That's what that conversation was happening in there. And it was as honest and as raw as it could possibly be. And I still applaud our hosts for being gracious and allowing each of us to express what was not just at the tip of our tongue, but deep within our souls. Grâce à France. Merci beaucoup et merci à tous.
Thank you very much, Peter, and thank you very much, everybody, for coming to the program today and for making Creative Industry Talk a beautiful place to be. And we're looking forward to having a series of this conversation going. Peter, we want to say thank you very much. It's how we spread love here to the rest of the world. We probably do it one more time. We have to spread love here to everyone in the world. Until next week, Creative Industry has come to an end. Eddie Okilah, Engineer Peter Beno Nyeko, right here talking about the Neo Africa France Summit 2021. What does it mean for the creative industry in Africa, in East Africa, and particularly down here in Uganda? Until then, stay hooked.
Believe in your skill and your potential to be a good player, because I know there were times when I didn't think I could do it and I wanted to give up, but then my dad, you know, he was there, he pushed me, he would wake me up for training in the morning. When the last day before I had, you know, shots weren't dropping. You know, you just need to have, and you need to have that self-drive, but you also need to have support. So seek for support from your parents. Don't be shy to bring up the idea of, you know, can I go for training today, or maybe can I get a basketball and be dribbling, because you need to be able to not make excuses for yourself. That's a thing that a lot of people subconsciously do. They're like, well, I don't have a court at home, so I can't do anything. But you can get a basketball and learn to dribble, you know. Then when you actually are able to access a court, you'll have a starting point, you know. And also to, you know, just if you love something, give it your all. Because I know there was a time when I played basketball, but I didn't love it, so I was just, you know, going with the flow, not really, I didn't have any sense of direction, I didn't have any goal. But when I started setting goals for myself and actively trying to reach them, that's when I actually started seeing results, like with the national team. I set that as a goal, and you know, it paid off when I got to play, and also the Kenya camp. Because the second I came back from Cairo, you know, I was sleeping one morning, I had slept, I'd come back, it was the second day we'd been back. I hear a knock at my door, it's my dad. Get up, coach is coming in 30 minutes, be ready. You know, you have to be able to do that for yourself, or have someone who's willing to do that for you. And you know, just look for opportunities to play. I know there's like a lot of people who can't, you know, it's not as simple as just waking up, you know, getting a driver to take you somewhere. But you know, look around, maybe your area, there's like a place you can go for pickup. Maybe you can borrow someone's ball, you know, just if you want it enough, you'll be able to put in the work. Yeah.
Quite something very interesting, very big surprises that were happening last weekend. Raise Life coming up to shock, Tropical Royals, the Watoto Boys also. So it is quite a jungle down there, very unpredictable. Your take?
Last weekend we hosted Pai Kamoga, last or the other weekend, and he was telling us that the D-League is a very exciting league, okay, because you never really know what you're walking into. You think Team A is going to beat Team B, and you know everything turns the other way around. Okay, there are teams that have actually been working out. The Raise Life guys, there are people who didn't sleep. They knew there was a possibility of the league returning, and you know they kept working out. So as the league is going on now, surprises are happening. Livingstone lost last weekend, a game that they had they are
prepared for very, very. What should I say, urgently and eagerly, and they needed that win.
And you remember their manager promised to give them something if they want.
Their manager promised them huge incentive
Yeah.
when they get that game,
Yeah,
and
but
even
they-
put it out there on record.
Yeah, but they ended up losing the game, and that just goes to show you that the D League is a very interesting league, and it's good for Ugandan basketball, especially when it comes to the aspects of marketing. Many companies are looking for that exciting element, and I think it's a good way that they're going. Today's games, hopefully, when the heavens close, there'll be more exciting action that is happening later in the afternoon. Yeah.
The most anticipated game for today, our savior up against Tropical Royals, and Tropical Royals head coach Bernard told me that it is a do or die.
Yeah.
And he assured me this time, if the boys mess up, I'm firing someone. Huh? Do you think coaches should have that kind of mentality? Tell me, if they mess up in court, I am firing someone.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a game that you really need to win, okay, there are ways of motivating players. Some you'll say, okay, you know what, if we win, we're giving you a bonus. Others, you tell them, we lose, we are firing people.
When you look at the stat sheet and realize that you actually were costing the team much more.
You might be on the line for a firing.
Yeah, quite interesting that the D League is back, and excitement is up there, and the basketball fans and basketball stakeholders. And it's also a big improvement because it works as a stepping stone and litmus paper for the National Basketball League management to show NCS that actually we can have our National Basketball League back. We have followed the SOPs, and we can actually close out funds. However, to the fans out there was a bit of frustration, disappointment. Remember, the games were supposed to be streamed on the FUBA Facebook pages and the D-League pages. However, that didn't happen. So the fans just have to rely on results. They cannot see what's going on. They cannot see which player actually was turning over the ball and why, who made which wrong decision. So there, I think it is to the lower league management committee. It is something that they should work on urgently.
There's when we did history in high school, there was something about the Bourbon monarchs that there's something about that they learned nothing after all they had gone through. And when the pandemic began, basketball was stopped. Then we started playing again, and it was a golden opportunity actually to move basketball into the media arena. Okay, to basically put it out on social media, on YouTube, and all these things. And you think by now, FUBA would have learned their lesson, because even when the NBL games were happening at that time, there were some games that were streamed, some were streamed halfway, and all these things. And we really had a big gap of where we should have planned, knowing that we're not going to allow people to, be physically there and watch the games. Then we still need to show them the game. So they should have actually put that in the plan for these D-League games, exciting as they are. Okay, I don't want to hear that they were exciting. I want to see the excitement there.
I want to see how Tropical Royals lost by 4 points, yet they were leading all through, and last minute the table flips and ends up ending 68-57. Yes.
And you see, it also plays, for example, now Betway, let's say Betway wanted to sponsor a team down in the D-League, okay? What videos are you going to show them? Are they going to depend on word of mouth for something
or
they haven't seen?
or a media report?
So it's something they actually should have considered. Okay, finances play a big part in this, but still, I mean, get a volunteer with his camera and say, you know what, we're paying you some 10K, take for us a game, and let's put it out there. So it's something they should have planned for, which is not happening now.
Or perhaps looking also, because to every side there's always a bright side. Now they've increased on the venue, because previously when the league resumed, it was only in Nakasero Primary School court, which is well gazetted. There's a gate and you can hold out fans. However, this Saturday they've increased, and the KIU courts have also been added on. So some of the games actually are taking place at KIU. Now that is also going to serve as a big test to see, can the lower league management committee close out the funds? Because remember, the KIU court is an open court.
The good thing, KIU is not in the lower leagues. So.
But they have a few students who are at the campus.
But it's not as big as, remember in the NBL, every time KIU was playing, even the security that was put there could
Was
not
also
stop
watching.
them. Yes, so it's good that maybe KIU is not taking part, and yeah, I mean, they could control the crowd. And
To our guest this afternoon,
Yes.
Mr. Moses Opio,
Yes.
what is your breakdown and analysis of the D-League as the games are going on?
The D-Leagues, they are quite exciting. Yeah, I love what is happening. The only thing that we can't see really much. I haven't actually really watched those games, but I follow them as much as I can. Yes, I've been following mostly Tropical Royals, and I'm thinking they should come up.
You believe that it's a team that should be in the upper division?
Yes. I've been following them for quite some time. Yeah, their recruitment and everything. I also spoke to Brian Rugendo. Yeah, he has been trying to pull the strings together, trying to get the puzzles, the pieces, to put the pieces together. Yeah, so his target, I think, is to come up.
Yeah, the target is definitely to come up, because
him.
with when you look at their setup and the number of sponsors that they have, definitely staying down is not an option.
Yes.
And next season, when it kicks off, it's going to be something very interesting and very, very competitive. Remember, no team is going. We reset, and now all the teams are back.
Yes.
So, and the D League still has to promote 2 teams.
Yes, that is
so
true.
it was finalized that next season 4 teams will be relegated, so that they can balance it back. So you can imagine how that is going to be. I can see Emma is wondering if Falcons will be able to
be safe.
when there are 4 teams which are going to be relegated.
Falcons is safe, very safe.
Yes, Falcons seems safe. Maybe we talk about Warriors who didn't actually participate at all, sharing, didn't participate at all. So in my thinking, I think those are the ones who should go down, not the ones who at least participated.
Well, they have they got a window and now they are back, and Warriors management told me that they will have a team ready. Let the public and the fans just wait. They will have a team ready by the time they say the season is resuming.
So what happens to the lower div, the teams that are supposed to come up?
The teams that are supposed to come up are going to be promoted. So there's going to be an extra 2 teams up in the National Basketball League.
Okay.
So our viewers out there, remember we are live on Facebook and on our YouTube channel. Feel free to send in your comments, your remarks, and your views on next season having 4 teams to be relegated, because there will be an additional 2 teams. Before we go into the main issue as to why Mr. Opio is here, Emma, another milestone. First of all, it started out as a very big thing, the first Ugandan player to be signed by an NBA team. Then when they were in training camp, he didn't make the cut. We're speaking about Silverback center Ishmael Wainwright. He was dropped. But then, like they say, when one door closes, another opens. He gets a 2-year contract with the Phoenix Suns.
I don't say he was cut from the Raptors. Okay, they had so many people playing the same type of basketball and the same position he was playing, so it didn't really make sense for the Raptors to add another player of who plays the same kind of way that other guys play. Like, so if I have 4 guys playing the same way,
the same defensive role,
there is no reason why I should add one more. Okay, yeah, but like you said, when one door closes, another door opens. Now Phoenix Suns is a team that needs a guy like him. Okay, so he fitted perfectly into the Phoenix Suns, and I believe that when the Raptors cut him, I knew for a fact that an NBA team had to pick him up. Either an NBA team or a G League team had to pick him up, because he has shown over a period of time, when he was still playing in France, then playing for the Silverbacks, he has actually shown that, you know, he deserves to be at that NBA level. Yeah, so kudos to him. It's a proud moment for Uganda, first Ugandan to be in the NBA. At least we can say now we have a foot somewhere.
We have a foot somewhere in the best league, basketball league in the world. We'll return after this short break with Mr. Opio telling us what they are cooking for the game of basketball.
I didn't know that one day I would be the coach of Makerere. Yeah, but when I was in high school, I always thought about it because I loved the game so much. And I wasn't playing it because my parents could not allow me to play it the way I wanted it. My guardians. I told one of my friends, it's called Gerard Abidravo. I told him, one day I want to become either a coach or an umpire. And he laughed and was like, yeah, maybe you can make it. So when I became the coach of Namilyango, he was the first man to tell me that, man, congratulations. As you said it, here it comes. And so when I reached Makerere, I didn't think I would be the coach at Makerere University because it was a university and there are so many people with more experience than I do. But because of love of coaching the game, out of the experience I had got, I used to go and sit there, watch, and I'm like, okay, this is that. And remember, I had also coached the girls of Hilton in my first year. So I knew how to handle girls, and I also knew how to handle boys because I had gotten both experiences. Yeah, so after a while, in 2019, Makerere was going for university games in Chisui. And incidentally, Coach Albert was not around. So they needed, so I volunteered. Yeah, I volunteered. They were going with a coach, with you know, Makerere has 2 coaches, for the boys and for the girls. So I saw that as an opportunity. So I went to the sports union, to the sports department, and I told them I want to volunteer. I just want to go there and volunteer and help where there is need. They gave me the opportunity. They were like, all right, you go and do that. Well, the only thing I wanted was where I can sleep and my lunch and supper, which was very much available. So I also went in like any other coach, but it was my first time with all the pressure and I wanted results. Fortunately, something happened. We played Kumba Marines. Kumba Lady Marines? Yes, we played in Kumba with Ekon. They are a very good player, national team now. And she was part of that team and we won that game. When we won that game, I think for me, my fate in coaching had been sealed. This guy is going to be a coach.
Welcome back to Slam Dunk Basketball Talk. Felix Eopal is my name. In studio, we're with Moses Opio, the Betway Power publicist, and my co-host, Emmanuel Ateng. Mr. Opio, before we went for the break, we were discussing having a first Ugandan in the NBA. I don't know when Power hopes to have a play in the NBA.
Very soon, very soon.
Very soon?
Yes, we're working towards that.
Hopefully, we will start with the reason as to why you are here today. Something is being cooked up by Power Basketball Club as well as other partners. Please enlighten our viewers out there what that is and the dynamics of everything.
Okay. We have come up with a tournament called The Invite.
The Invite.
The Invite. So I'm also the head of publicity for The Invite and part of the organizing committee. And that's the main reason why I've come. I've not come to talk about Power, but I've come to talk about The Invite, the tournament.
Please. I would also love to know about The Invite.
Yes. So since the league was cancelled, we decided to come together and organized with the teams that had registered that they wanted to continue to play. So we started by contacting those teams. So the Invite is basically an invitational tournament. And we have about 6 teams.
6 teams confirmed?
Yeah, we have 6 teams confirmed. And we have 2 groups already. And the tournament is to start on 30th.
That is
which is next Saturday at the YMCA court.
To our viewers out there, we are live on Facebook and on our YouTube channel. Feel free, your comments, your remarks, your questions, relay them. We'll be reading them and going through. Which teams have confirmed, and is there a registration fee to be part of the Invite?
Yes, there's a registration fee. We have 6 teams. The first team, we have Power.
Okay.
We have Nam Blazers. We have Falcons.
Oh,
We
very
have-
interesting.
yeah,
very
we-
interesting.
Yeah, we have UCU.
I'm eager to see Emma back in action.
Yes, Emma will be back in action this very weekend.
But I wonder if Falcons can assemble a full 12-man team.
We wait and see. They have been working towards that. We wait and see. We also have UPDF.
Okay.
Then there's
UPDF Tomahawks.
Yes, Tomahawks. Then we have Takan Locaries.
Takan Locaries.
Yeah, there's a team that came up together.
I haven't heard of that before in all the years I've been.
Yes,
Yeah.
they came up together. It's a new team.
Okay.
Yes, so they are planning for lower deal next year. So they have to start by coming and play in the tournament. So basically, the tournament is meant to remember the fallen basketball players and members.
It's a tribute.
Yeah, it is a tribute
a very good gesture.
to all the fallen basketball members and family. So we will be playing to remember all those basketball players who are no longer with us. Yeah, so it will be a tribute to them. Yeah, so we have two groups. There's group A and group B. Group A has Namongo, Nam Blazers, it has Power, then it has Falcons. Yes, then group B has UPDF, UCU, and Takan Locaries.
And Takan Locaries.
Yeah. So
very interesting venture, and it will be, I believe, something very interesting for the game of basketball.
Yes.
Emma, how is Falcons set up for the invite?
You know, there's sometimes when you're in the kitchen cooking things, you don't need to let the people in the living room know what you're cooking.
At least they can smell the aroma and know that either it's chicken being prepared or beef.
Yeah, by the time you know Falcons is coming, 6-time champions, you know there's something cooking.
6-time champions who are almost relegated.
It's okay. We can take it to football and say Arsenal is suffering the same way, but they will come back one day.
They'll make a bounce back.
Yeah.
Mr. Opio,
Yes.
where is the tournament going to be, and how long is it going to take?
the tournament it will be at the YMCA court.
Okay.
Every Saturday we shall have two games. To run for about six weeks.
6 weeks.
6 weeks. So every Saturday we have two games starting at 2 p.m.
Starting at
One
2 p.m.
game at 2 p.m. Another game at 4 p.m.
Oh.
Yes, yeah. So it will run every weekend until we reach the top two teams. Will go straight to the semis in the 5th week.
In the 5th week.
Then in the 6th week we shall have third place playoff. Then the finals.
6 teams. Why the decision to have only 2 games? Yet the fans out there are thirsty to watch basketball, to watch our local players, to watch their local stars, to watch the people that they see. Why 2 games only?
We had thought of having more games, actually starting early, if we had registered like more team, because it was the open invitational tournament. But since we only got 6, we decided to make it run so it can prolong it a bit. Because if we have more games, that means now we shall have we'll play games for a shortest period of time. But now to prolong it a bit for the excitement of the fans, we decided we have it in 6 weeks.
Is registration closed, or can another team still come and apply?
For now, the registration is closed because the 6 teams have already confirmed.
Yeah, I believe Falcons would be scared if another team joined in. Their chances to keep on doing
I thought you asked him because you wanted to register a team for all timers.
We might be a team from D League, and it surprises everyone at the invite. Being at the YMCA, YMCA is an open court. Are fans going to be allowed?
For now, fans are not allowed, but we are in talks with NCS, National Council of Sport, and very soon we'll let the fans know.
You let the fans know. Very soon. The tournament is happening next weekend.
Next weekend.
Yes, so I believe the soon is about within this particular period.
Yes, by the time we have the press conference, we shall tell the fans.
Oh.
Yes.
I remember when the season was starting, the way Power unveiled, and wow, that was actually something very brilliant. All of us were waiting for the traditional press conference. I remember we were having a discussion with Emma, and was telling me, have you gotten the venue? The communication hasn't come in. Only for us to be there, and boom,
Everything was online.
Everything drop online.
Yes.
The signing of the contracts, and then unveiling the players, unveiling home kit, away kit. Well, that was a notch higher.
Yes, because of what happened last year, so we decided to do that, not to avoid the physical meeting and everything. Yeah, so that's why that was done.
Emma, what's your take on having a venture like this when the league is not on?
I think it actually even came late. I'm just glad that Betway Power actually, took up the mantle. It basically took basketball on its shoulders, to put it out there, because not having a league for 2 years is something that is really detrimental to the game of basketball. We can't say we had the league this year because it was on and off. So Betway and Power taking up the mantle is a really good thing, because one, it keeps that focus and the visibility of basketball still there. Then two, it keeps our fan base, because there are other sports that are vying for fans. Rugby took a couple of basketball fans, and right now basketball is suffering because of that. So if the tournament hadn't happened, we're going to lose more fans, and getting fans back, getting Ugandan fans back to a sport is a very hard thing. So big ups to them. Then also the players, the longer it takes for someone to get back into playing shape, some people just quit.
Yeah, others by the time they come back, they're way very unfit and prone to getting some nasty injuries that will put them out for a long time.
Yeah, so I believe that even when the league resumes next year, there are certain players that you're not going to see coming back to the game of basketball. But now, because of this tournament, those who would have thought of leaving the game are still going to be involved in the game of basketball, which is a very good initiative. I wish other teams could have also taken up the mantle to do the same thing as these guys did. Yeah.
Of all the teams that you have mentioned, there is no ladies team. In this particular tournament, weren't the ladies considered?
We thought of the ladies team, but for starters, we thought we start with the men's team, because we shall be having this tournament every year. Every off-season we shall be having. So
every off-season.
So I'm thinking next year we shall plan for the ladies.
So basically, this is a pilot project.
Yes, it is. It's going to be there every year.
So is it only Power behind this, or you have other partners on board?
We have partners on board. We have Betway for starters. Then we have Renzori. Okay. Then we have Club Beer. Yeah, so they're behind all this.
Various seasons have gone on in basketball. In the National League, and teams, for example, the 7-time champion City Oilers, I don't even think they have ever gotten prize money for winning those 7 championships. Very many fans out there would love to know, what are these teams playing for? Is it just fun and passion? What is the prize for winning the invite?
Before we talk about the prize, we looked around the region and realized it's only in Uganda where basketball is not happening. If you go to Rwanda, basketball is happening. You go to Burundi, you go to Tanzania, it is happening. And that is not so good for our development. So that's why we decided let's have games to keep our players active, so that the league resumes when the players are fit, and we can be able even to participate out there with other teams from other countries. So we have organized trophies. Yeah, we have trophies as the prize. As we are starting, so we just started. As we go on, we shall have prize money as well. For now, we have trophies.
It is Slam Dunk Basketball, and Mr. Moses Opio, the publicist of Betway Power, is telling us about the Invite, a tournament that will be starting next weekend. It is an only invite tournament, but already registration is closed. We'll return after this short break as he breaks down more dynamics or surprises that might be happening.
Talent is here. Uganda's got talent. That one is not proven. From boxing, athletics. Now Kenya, we came in the Olympics better than Kenya. For how long have we been there struggling before? But now we had more medals than them. So the key thing here is corporate companies please come aboard. the government will do their part. They will also squeeze whatever they can to come through. National councils will also keep on budgeting to see what they can do better on us. And also federations, all of them, basketball, football,